What happens when a mad king sets up shop on top of a giant rock? Today on Tales Under the Cat Tree, we go to Sri Lanka and Sigiriya, the Lion's Rock. Hello, welcome to Tales Under the Cat Tree. I'm your host, Dupes. Each week, I pair a compelling piece of fiction or autobiography with bigger topics. Words create the worlds we live in, and stories provide a lens into understanding history, technology, or business by connecting personal narratives to the wider picture. Subscribe at tales.dupes.ca for more original writing and engaging interviews. Today, I am recording from the rooftops of Colombo, Sri Lanka. It's the start of rainy season, and while today is a humid, sunny morning, the past days have thundered and growled and rained with a torrential fury as we have completed a short circuit around and through the central highlands of the country. The cityscape of modern Colombo is dotted here and there with temples and peaked roofs mimicking a style that has been common in this country for several millennia. Today, the island that is a teardrop off the coast of southern India boasts a population of over 20 million. I've been told this might also have been the number of people 1,000 years ago, before a population collapse for various reasons, including malaria. But first, a little bit about Sri Lanka. It's a tropical country, a tropical island known throughout the centuries by various names. The ancient Greeks called it Taprobane, derived from Tambapani, which is about the copper beaches common to many an Instagram post by beach-loving influencers. The Arab traders coming for spices such as locally grown cinnamon called it Serendib. The Portuguese and British called it some version of Ceylon, by which its tea products are still marketed today. But for the people who have lived here from ancient times through to my parents, it is merely Lanka, the island. The island is slightly smaller than Ireland and by area the 25th largest island in the world. Today, I want you to go back in time. As with all ancient peoples without access to our modern tools and knowledge, the world was centered around what we could see and physically access. For those people, this island was the center of their universe. As you go north from the equator along this island, past several billion-year-old mountains that formed before India slammed into Asia to form the Himalayas, you find yourself on a vast, flat jungle plain. Overlooking the jungle are various ancient geological anomalies, and today I want to talk about one of them. The ancient rock, now called Sigiriya, called back then Sinhagiri, and in English, the Lion's Rock. This massive piece of granite stands unique above this jungle. Its top slopes gently, while its walls are sheer. By the way, pictures of everything I talk about are in the show notes. In Sri Lanka, and for Sri Lankans, the story of this rock and its king is famous. I will tell you the story of how Sigiriya came to be in the way my father told me. My father was a storyteller at heart, so I'm not going to fact-check any of this. It's simply how I was introduced to it as a child. It is also the way that I introduce Sigiriya to all the friends from Canada and Finland who have accompanied me around the islands on various tours during the last 3 decades. Later in the episode, I will, however, read the ancient Sri Lankan chronicle that talks about this time. So here's how my father told me about Sigiriya and captured my imagination of an ancient time and a seemingly mad king. I'm going to tell the story as if I am my father, and he used to call me Churiputa, which is youngest son in Sinhalese. I'll try to weave a bit of Sinhalese into this narrative.
You see, Churiputa, the island of Lanka is a country of climate contrasts. In the center, you have the Central Highlands and no peoples till the British really ventured and lived up in the highest hills. But most of the island was flat, and that's where the people lived. The only problem was that you had 2 rainy seasons, and it's a microclimate. You can go a couple of miles and there would be no rain. our people, they wouldn't have survived without rice. But rice cultivation now, that needs rain. So this story is about a mad king. But it starts from the smallest thing that we grow, rice. Now, Puta, Dannawad, you see that river, the big lake over there. That's Kalau River. The ancient kings of Sri Lanka became excellent dam builders. They say that back then there were 20 million people here, and that's because you had to be able to feed them. So most of these lakes we see, they are man-made, and they survive to this day. So there was this ancient king, Datusena. He was a great dam builder and was a very successful king. The story goes that he was building that dam wall on Kalau River, and he discovered that the exact place for the dam wall, there was seated a monk who was trying to attain nirvana. He went back there day after day to try and get this man to move, but he was so far into reaching enlightenment that he wasn't listening at all. After about a week of this, Datusena got incredibly angry, and you know what he did? He said to the workers that if this man wasn't going to come out to save the kingdom, then he might as well be part of it, and ordered the monk to be buried alive. Now, Datusena had 2 sons. His eldest son was Moggallana, and he was from royal blood. But his second son, Kasyapa, he hailed from the second wife, not of royal blood. Now, Kasyapa's mother was campaigning for him to become a king, and if I recall correctly, the mother was also having an affair with the captain of the guard. Kasyapa was apparently quite the spendthrift and loved art. I would say, Puta, these days, he would probably have been an artist, like your brother. Anyway, Kasyapa had eyes on the treasury and kept asking his father for more and more money for his projects, and he finally demanded to see the treasury. Datusena relented and said, "Right, let me take you to the treasury." Instead of going to the palace, Datusena then leads a confused Kasyapa to the Kalau River reservoir. There, on the dam wall, he points out to the filled water tank and says to Kasyapa, Here, son, here is our treasury. This is what feeds you and all of us." Now, that fool Kasyapa, he fell into a blind rage and demanded again for the treasury key, to which Datusena again denied him. So Kasyapa took his sword and killed his father on the dam wall. They say that it was over the exact spot that Datusena had buried alive the ascetic monk all those years ago. So now, what to do? Kasyapa went in a blind panic to his mother, who called the captain of the guard. They declared him king and started the process of exiling Moggallana, who fled to India. Now, Kasyapa knew that Moggallana had the most legitimate claim to the throne and would one day come back to claim it with Indian help. So he set out to find a place from where he could rule in safety. His court came back with an amazing suggestion. A rock existed where he could easily build a palace on top. This was Sigiriya. And so began one of the most beautiful places in the world. He consulted his soothsayers, and they told him as long as he stayed above in the palace at the top, he would be safe. Should he ever venture down, his brother would kill him for certain and take the throne. So Kasyapa retired to the top of that rock, and his court built an amazing palace. From the top, he oversaw the construction of multiple moats, gardens, and pools. At the last level, before ascending to the true inner palace, you would have to enter through a gate that had the full head of the lion. These days, you only see the front paws of that lion. Every day, he would send runners to his parliament to oversee the kingdom. Now, this fellow might have been mad, but he was an artistic genius. The gardens were constructed in true symmetry, and the walls adorned with beautiful artworks and frescoes. At the top, they set about creating waterworks, pools, and even sewage systems for the toilets. Artists from around Asia would come pay homage, and as they waited, they would leave graffiti on the walls, poems, messages, and so on. He did all of this in a scant 20 years, if you can believe it. But of course, all this while Moggallana had amassed an army of elephants, and of course, he crossed the land bridge from India to Sri Lanka. He laid siege to Sigiriya, but Kasyapa, remembering the advice of his soothsayers, he stayed put. But Moggallana had one more trick up his sleeve, He started sending messages against Kasyapa's beloved mother. Now that damned fool, he went into a rage and yelled to his men to get his war elephant ready. Despite everyone pleading with him to stop, he finally descended to the ground, gets on his elephant, and rides to meet his half-brother. But I don't know what happened. Now this fellow, he was possibly completely mad. Maybe his eldest brother killed him, maybe he killed himself. Regardless, Kasyapa died, and Moggallana took the kingdom and left this magical place to go to ruin. So Chutiputta, that's the story of Kasyapa and Sigiriya. Do you know what the moral of this story is? I'll tell you. If your holy men say stay on top of a bloody rock or risk death, stay on the bloody rock.
Over the years, I have taken many people up this magnificent rock and palace, and to this day, it never ceases to amaze me what one person's will can truly accomplish. Whether the story happened as my father told me, I guess we won't know for sure. What I can tell you is that if you come to Sri Lanka, Sigiriya is well worth the visit. It is on the high side, and it can be nerve-wracking for those afraid of heights. Of course, if you're a child of the 80s, and especially much music in Canada, you might already be familiar with Sigiriya. When my friend Mike Mannion reached the top of Sigiriya and wandered around, he said it was an out-of-body experience for him. It was as if he had already been there. The band Duran Duran lived for a short while in Sri Lanka and filmed several music videos, Hungry Like the Wolf and Save a Prayer Till the Morning After. This latter video could well have been a tourism video orchestrated by the country of Sri Lanka. I've linked to all of these in the show notes. On this visit to Sigiriya, I was happy to take my friend and colleague from Supermetrics, Victor, around the island. By the time we reached tea country, I asked him a few questions around the visit. So, for the record, who are you and where are you right now?
I am Victor Divshibakka, and I'm sitting in a tea factory in Sri Lanka.
How did you get here? What has the journey been for you here in Sri Lanka so far?
Excellent question. 2 months ago, I never thought this would happen, but then I got invited by my dear friend Dupes, traveling first to Singapore and from Singapore to Sri Lanka on kind of a road trip of Dupes' favorite places around the island.
So I'm going to ask you about a very specific place. Now, I took you to a bunch of different places, but what was Sigiriya like?
It was a mix of many things. Firstly, located on a beautiful scenery, a rock standing above the green nature with views as far as the eye can see. And the next feeling is you can feel the heavy legs from all the climbing. I don't know how many steps, but quite a few. And then thirdly, imagining what it could have been like to build a fort on top of a completely inaccessible rock thousands of years ago.
Now, after Sigiriya, we actually came to the highlands to a place filled with tea. You and I both drink a lot of tea.
Oh, yes.
So how does this feel to be in the middle of tea land?
It feels quite surreal, to be honest. Quite unreal feeling. I remember around 10 years ago, I read one of these books where you're supposed to make a list of things that if you had unlimited resources, time, money, whatever, that you one day would like to experience. And I thought, well, what could that be? And I think the first thing I wrote was experience a Japanese tea ceremony, or experience a tea ceremony in Japan. And well, this is a very similar experience.
A little far from Japan.
Well, far from Japan, but tea heaven still.
Anything else about this trip pop into your head as being interesting, remarkable, or worthy of mention, especially when it comes to Sri Lanka?
Well, we've seen a lot of things and still have a lot of things to see, I suppose. And one feeling that I've had throughout the trip so far is that it's incredible how much we don't know, how much we haven't learned when we were kids in school. We read in history about Mesopotamia and ancient Rome and ancient Greeks and everything, but so little about so many cultures and civilizations around the world. And there's so much history going back thousands and thousands of years here.
And so many people who have lived and died and been forgotten.
Hundreds of generations.
More stories to tell. Thank you very much, Victor.
Thank you.
Now, you might be curious on what the ancient Sri Lankans might have recorded about the palace. My brother Harsha, a noted scholar of history in Sri Lanka, provided the following pages from Sri Lanka's Chulavamsa. Sri Lanka is lucky to have recorded history from this time period. I've chosen parts of the story of Dhatusena and that of Kasyapa. Personally, I think my father's version is more natural, but you can be the judge of that. From the Chulavamsa, as translated by William Geiger, Dhatusena had two sons, Kasyapa by mother of unequal birth, and the mighty Moggallana by mother of equal caste, also a charming daughter who was dear to him as his life. On his sister's son he bestowed the dignity of Senapati and gave him his daughter to wife. Without blame on her part, he struck her with his whip on the thigh. When the king saw the blood-stained garment of his daughter and heard of the affair, he, in his wrath, had his nephew's mother burned naked. From that time onward, his nephew nursed hatred against the king, joined Kasyapa, awoke in him the desire for the royal dignity, estranged him from his father, won over his subject, and took the ruler Dhatusena prisoner alive. Thereupon, Kasyapa raised the umbrella of dominion and destroyed the people who sided with his father, having every scoundrel as his comrade. Moggallana, whose intention it was to fight back, betook himself as he could, raised no forces to Jambudipa to find troops there, now to torment still further the Lord of Men, i.e. Dhatusena, sorely smitten as he already was by loss of his kingdom's separation from his son, and by life in a dungeon. The deluded Senapati spake thus to King Kasyapa, "There are treasures lying in the king's palace. O king, has thy father told it to thee?" On the answer, "No," he said. "Knowest thou not his intention? O monarch, for Moggallana he keeps his wealth." When he heard that, this most wicked of men grew furious and sent messengers to his father with the command to make known the place where the treasure lay. The latter thought, "This is a pretext of the villain to kill us," and he kept silence. The messengers went and told the king. He became very wroth and sent messengers again and again. Dhatusena thought, "It is well, I will visit my friend, bathe in the Kalavapi, and then die." And he spake to the messengers, "If he lets me go to the Kalavapi, he shall learn it." The messengers went and told the king, and the king, joyful in his thirst for gold, sent messengers, to whom he gave a chariot with a damaged axle. As the monarch drove thither, the driver who guided the chariot ate roasted corn and gave him also a little of it. He ate of it, had joy of the men, and gave him a leaf for Moggallana, asking him to take him gatekeeper as a reward. Thus is good fortune fleeting as the lightning. How then can the sensible man be intoxicated by it? When the Thera heard, "The king comes," he put aside the bean soup and chicken he had received, remembering, "The king likes that," and took his seat. The king came, greeted him respectfully, and took a place at his side. Thus the twain sat side by side, as if they had gained a kingdom, and their mutual converse chased their cares away. After the Thera had entertained the king, he admonished him in many ways, and encouraged him to strive ceaselessly, showing him how the world is subject to the law of impermanency. Then Dhatusena betook himself to the tank, plunged as he liked therein, bathed and drank, and spake to the king's henchmen, "This here, my friends, is my whole wealth." When the king's henchmen heard that, they took him with him to the town and informed the king. The Lord of Men thought, "He is keeping his treasure for his son, and as long as he lives he will estrange the people of the island from me." He was filled with fury and commanded the Senapati thus, "Slay my father." He, the Senapati, rejoiced, saying, "Now I have seen the back of my foe." Full of bitterness, adorned with all his ornaments, he betook himself to the king, strutted up and down before him. When the king saw that, he thought, "This villain wants to ruin my soul even as my body and bring it to hell. Shall I fulfill the wish by letting anger rise within me, Awaking loving thoughts within himself, he spake to the Senapati, I have the same feelings for thee as for Moggallana. The other, laughing, shook his head. When the ruler saw this, he realized, today even he will slay me. Thereupon the brutal Senapati stripped the king naked, bound him with chains and fetters in a niche in the wall with his face outwards, and closed it up with clay. What wise man, seeing this, would still hanker after pleasure of life or fame? The lord of men, Datusena, went thus after 18 years, murdered by his son, to the king of the gods. When this king was building the Kalavapi tank, he saw a bhikkhu sunk in meditation, and as he could not rouse him out of his absorption, he had a clod of earth flung at the bhikkhu's head. The consequences of this deed, experienced in his lifetime, has been described in the story of his violent death. These 10 excellent kings, also with their treasures, have fallen into the jaws of death, robbed of their treasures. Can a wise man, when he sees the fleeting nature of the rich and of wealth, crave for earthly joys? Here ends the 38th chapter, called The 10 Kings, in the Vahamamsa, compiled for the serene joy and emotion of the pious. Chapter 39, The History of the 2 Kings. Thereupon, the wicked ruler called Kasyapa sent forth his groom and his cook. But as he was unable through these to slay his brother, he betook himself through fear to Sigiriya, which is difficult ascent for human beings. He cleared the land round about and surrounded it with a wall and built a staircase in the form of a lion. Thence it took its name of Sigiriya. He collected treasures and kept them there well protected, and for the riches kept by him he set guards in different places. Then he built there a fine palace, worthy to behold, like another Alakamanda, and dwelt there like the god Kuvera. The Senapati, by name Megara, built a parivepa, called after himself, and a house for the victor Abhiseka. He sought permission to hold a consecration festival for it, even greater than that for the stone image of the Buddha. As leave was not granted him, he refrained with the resolve, I shall seek for it again, under the sovereignty of the rightful ruler. Kasyapa began to rue the deed he had done, and with the thought, how can I be saved? He performed many meritorious works. He planted gardens about the gates of the city, and mango groves over the island at a yojana's distance from each other. He restored the Isarasama Parama so that it was larger than the former ground, bought villages for its support, and granted them to it. He had 2 daughters, Bodhi and Upalavanna. He gave their names and his own to this vihara. When he handed it over to the samanas of the Thera school, they were loth to take it, fearing the reproach of the people because it was the work of a parricide. As, however, the king wished to give it to them, he presented it to the image of the Supreme Buddha. Then the bhikkhus agreed, thinking it belongs to the master. In the same way, he built a vihara in the Nyanti garden near the mountain, which then bore their name. He granted this vihara equipped with the 4 necessaries to the Dharma Rusis, and in addition a garden lying to the north of it. Now once, when eating a tasty dish of rice prepared with santra fruit, cooked with butter and exquisite spices, which a woman had offered him, he thought, this is delicious. I will treat the brethren to it, and he had the like dish of rice given to the bhikkhus along with a robe. He kept the Upasatta festival and cultivated the Appamana. He took on himself the pious duties and had books copied. He made images, built alms halls, and the like in great numbers. Always he lived in fear of the other world and of Moggallana. Now in the 18th year, the royal hero Moggallana came hither at the information of the Niganthas, with 12 distinguished friends from Jambudipa, collected troops at the Kuttara Vihara in the Ambatakola district. When the king heard of it, he thought, I will seize and devour him. And though the soothsayer declared it to be impossible, he went forth with an array of forces. Moggallana likewise set forth with an army ready for battle, accompanied by his heroic friends, like to the gorge Sujampati, who fares forth to fight with the demons. When the 2 hosts fell on each other, like 2 seas that have burst their bounds, they fought a mighty battle. Kasyapa, espying a great stretch of swamp in front of him, turned his elephant to seek another road. When his troops, seeing that with the cry, "Friends, our commander here flees," broke up in disorder, the troops of Moggallana cried, "We see their backs." But the king, with his dagger in his throat, raised the knife on high and stuck it in the sheath. Moggallana carried out the ceremonious of burning, glad at his brother's death. He took the whole of the royal treasure and came to the capital. Thank you for listening to another episode of Tales Under the Cat Tree. If you want more original stories and interviews, check out the archives wherever you listen to this podcast. We've covered topics and stories about immigration, artificial intelligence, Stalinist Russia, and otherization, to name but a few. If you have fiction writing you want to feature, or have an interesting story to tell, or know someone who does, please do get in touch with me. This podcast will always be free. Support our work by subscribing and sharing with those who might care. You can reach me through email, contact@dups.ca, bluesky@dups.ca, or on my Substack at tales.dups.ca. The intro music is composed by me. Give your pet a cuddle and your loved ones a hug till we meet again for some tales under the cat tree.